My sister spat the words, each one a venomous dart. And my entire family, they just watched. They stood there, in a silent, unified judgment. Then came the ultimatum, delivered by my father with the cold finality of a judge's gavel. I was to hand over my entire $250,000 annual salary, every last cent, to finance her ridiculously extravagant wedding. The alternative? I would be banished, cut off, erased from the family entirely. What they didn't know, what they couldn't possibly comprehend in their bubble of arrogance, was that my plan was already in motion. A quiet, tectonic shift happening far beneath the surface of their awareness. And it all started with this tiny piece of paper. A check, made out to her, for the grand sum of just $2. Have you ever felt like an ATM for the very people who are supposed to love you unconditionally? It's a uniquely hollow feeling. A recent study I read showed that nearly 70% of major family disputes are rooted in money, but what they did to me, it transcended a simple argument. It was a corporate takeover of my life. This isn't just a story about greed, though there was plenty of that. It's about how I took the deepest humiliation they could inflict and meticulously forged it into the very fuel for my freedom. Stay with me, and I will show you, step by step, how I turned the greatest betrayal of my life into my greatest, most resounding victory. I will reveal how every single insult, every dismissive glance they ever gave me, secretly financed the architecture of my revenge. And finally, I will show you how a simple, almost laughable piece of paper managed to detonate a family empire that was built on a foundation of lies. If you have ever, for even a moment, felt underestimated, unseen, or undervalued, this story is for you. It all began, as these things so often do, at a Sunday dinner. The air in my parents' dining room was thick with a cloying hypocrisy and the scent of overcooked roast chicken. My sister, Clara, chose that moment to announce her engagement. A wave of forced, brittle applause echoed around the polished mahogany table. I congratulated her, and my sentiment was genuine, truly. But that was before she pulled me aside, her smile as sharp and cold as a shard of glass. "Lucas," she said, her voice a conspiratorial whisper that sent a chill down my spine, "my wedding is going to be the event of the year. And you are going to pay for it." I laughed. A hollow, disbelieving sound. It was a fatal mistake. She wasn't joking. She thrust her phone in my face, a meticulously detailed spreadsheet glowing on the screen. Luxury catering from a Michelin-starred chef, a custom gown from a New York designer she saw in a magazine, a historic, ridiculously expensive venue. The grand total at the bottom blinked in red, $250,000. "It's your exact yearly bonus, I looked it up," she said, as if discussing the weather. My father, the great patriarch, materialized at her side, a silent, imposing specter. He placed a heavy hand on my shoulder. "Your sister deserves the best, son. Don't disappoint us." I looked around the room. Every eye was on me. This wasn't a family. It was a board meeting where my life was the only item on the agenda. They were a pack of wolves, and they were ready to feast. "No," I said. The word, so small, so simple, landed in the center of the room and detonated the silence. The fallout was instantaneous. Clara's mask of civility didn't just slip, it shattered, revealing a contorted face of pure, unadulterated fury. "Ungrateful!" my father roared, his face a blotchy, alarming shade of crimson. "After everything we have done for you." What had they done? They had called me the nerd and the weird one my entire life, right up until my fintech app, the one they all mocked, actually took off. Suddenly, my success, or rather my money, made me a genius. That night, they gave me 24 hours. The money, or exile. I drove back to my apartment, the echo of their threats a toxic ringing in my ears. I should have felt despair. I should have felt broken. But instead, as I walked through my front door, something else washed over me. A strange, cold calm. A perfect, diamond-hard clarity. They hadn't cornered me. They had just given me the perfect, ironclad excuse to leave. They had handed me the key to my own cage. I opened my laptop. The screen's glow illuminated a faint, unfamiliar smile on my face. The plan didn't start with revenge. It started with survival. My father always prided himself on his integrity. He was a pillar of the community, a financial consultant trusted by everyone. It was all a magnificent lie. Years ago, as a teenager fascinated by code, I had installed a simple keylogger on his office computer. It was born of a naive curiosity, a desire to make sure he was safe online. The irony was sickening. The data I found showed the opposite. He wasn't the one in danger. He was the danger. He had a second family. A whole other life. A wife and 2 children living comfortably in another state, their lifestyle funded by the money he was carefully, systematically skimming from his clients' accounts and hiding from my mother. 4 years, I held on to this digital time bomb, this devastating secret, naively hoping he would find the courage to do the right thing. He never did. Now, his betrayal was my leverage. I hired the best private investigator my money could buy. A man who specialized in discreetly dismantling lives. "I want everything," I told him, my voice steady. "Photos, bank statements, birth certificates, school records. I want a dossier so thorough, so irrefutable, that it can demolish a man's entire world." While the investigator began assembling my arsenal, I turned my focus to Clara. Her life was a carefully curated Instagram mirage, a fantasy funded entirely by our father's stolen money. Her fiancé, Richard, was supposedly an investor from a wealthy family. It took me 15 minutes of deep diving online and 3 strategically placed phone calls to confirm my suspicion. Richard's family was broke. They were teetering on the precipice of a catastrophic bankruptcy. He needed this wedding and the money it represented just as desperately as she did. They were a perfect match, a union of greed and deceit. So, I made the call. I took a deep, steadying breath, and I injected a heavy, convincing dose of defeat into my voice. "Clara, okay. You win. I'll pay." The smug satisfaction on the other end of the line was practically audible. "But," I said, letting the word hang in the air, "I have one condition. I want to announce my gift to you at your engagement party. In front of everyone." She bit the hook so hard I could almost hear it tear. "Perfect," she chirped, her voice dripping with triumphant glee. "It'll be your chance to finally redeem yourself." She had no idea. It wasn't redemption she was offering me. It was Judgment Day. The week leading up to that party was the longest of my life. The texts from Clara were relentless, a constant stream of new demands. "I need an advance for the DJ. The florist doesn't take IOUs." I replied to every single one with a calm, infuriatingly simple, "Of course. It will all be handled at the party." My mother would call, her voice filled with a manufactured pride, telling me how happy she was that I was finally doing the right thing. Every word was another twist of the knife in my back. The night of the party, just an hour before I was due to leave, a courier delivered a small, discreet package. Inside was a single, black flash drive. It felt heavy in my hand, heavy with the weight of 20 years of lies. I slipped it into the inside pocket of my suit jacket, right next to another, much thinner envelope. One contained the complete and utter ruin of an empire. The other, a $2 check. The party was a monument to arrogance. I arrived just as Clara, beaming under the spotlights, was calling me to the stage. "And now, my dear brother Lucas has a very special announcement for us." The room fell into a hushed, expectant silence. The spotlight found me, blinding me. This was it. I took the microphone. My hand was perfectly steady. "Clara, Richard, I wish you both exactly what you deserve. To help you start your new life, I've prepared this gift for you." I pulled out the thin envelope. Clara's hand was trembling with excitement as she took it from me. She tore it open with a flourish. Her smile didn't freeze. It cracked. It splintered. And then, it completely shattered. Inside, there wasn't a check for $250,000. There was a check for $2. And tucked neatly behind it was a single, glossy photograph. My father, with his other wife, and his other children, all of them smiling brightly at a Christmas party. Clara stared at the photo, then shot a look of pure, unadulterated panic at my father. Richard, seeing her expression, snatched the photo from her hand. "What the hell is this?" he hissed, his voice a venomous whisper. And then, the massive projector screen behind them, which had been cycling through a slideshow of their happiest moments, flickered. It was replaced by the dossier. bank statements, wire transfers, property deeds, the birth certificates of my half-siblings. Everything. An email, which I had sent from my phone just seconds before, landed in my mother's inbox. The subject line read, "The truth you've deserved to know for 20 years." The sound of her scream, that raw, guttural cry of betrayal, was the sound of my freedom. My father made a move for the exit, but my mother, a woman I had never seen with such fire in her eyes, blocked his path. Richard looked at Clara with a look of such profound disgust it was almost artful. "It's over." He dropped the microphone, turned, and walked off the stage, leaving her alone in the spotlight, a dethroned queen in a crumbling kingdom of lies, with a $2 check fluttering to the floor at her feet. I didn't stay to watch the rest of the carnage. As their carefully constructed world burned to the ground, I walked out the back door. And I didn't look back. They wanted me to pay for a fake wedding. Instead, I forced them to face their fake lives. They gave me an ultimatum, and I gave them karma. Today, I live in Singapore. My company is worth 100 times more. My mother, she divorced him, took him for half of everything he had, and now sends me postcards from her travels around the world. She is, for the first time in her life, finally free. I never spoke to my father or my sister again. Sometimes, the best revenge isn't to fight. It's to simply remove your presence, your support, and your money, and watch the house of cards they built collapse under its own weight. They banished me. But I freed myself.